Working Motherhood and the Professional Athlete. Today we are on the line with Mary Jo Fernandez, ESPN commentator, former professional athlete, two-time gold medalist, and current U.S. Fed Cup captain since 2008, and a litany of other things I failed to record, but I just wanted to say thank you so much for coming on today, and congratulations on the Fed Cup's victory over the Aussies just recently.
Thanks, Jennifer. My pleasure.
Can you just to get us started, can you give our viewers a quick overview of the Fed Cup and what does the victory over the Aussies mean for us in 2017?
Sure. So Fed Cup is a team competition. It's the equivalent of the Davis Cup, which is the men's version. And basically you have 8 teams in the world group, and then you have 8 teams in the second group, and then it goes further down. We have been in the second world group the last couple of years, so this matchup against Australia was an opportunity, if we won, to get back into the world group of the top 8. So it was quite a big match, and we had to go to Australia, which was not easy considering, everybody was just there at the end of January, and everybody's heading to Europe right now. But they had the home tie advantage, so we ended up having to go to Brisbane, and my team that was comprised of Madison Keys, Christina McHale, Coco Vandeweghe, and Bethany Maddox-Sands, they all performed incredibly well. They had great chemistry, and we were able to, come up with the win and get back in the world group. So really, really proud of all of them.
Well, that's terrific. And you've had tremendous success as the captain of this team since 2008. I mean, you've had a number of victories, but you played in the Fed Cup yourself as a player. How is it different being a coach than a player, besides, of course, the obvious?
Yeah, no, it's very different. But I have to say, when I look back on my career, even though tennis is an individual sport, the memories that stand out the most are when I was part of a team. And being part of the Fed Cup team and the Olympic team were really special. So now being able to, come back and be on the other side of it as a coach, is very special for me. I feel, really honored, and I feel like it's such a privilege. But it is different because, now you're dealing with different personalities, different game styles, and you just have 1 week, with them a couple times a year. So you try to, give the best advice you can and motivate, and you have to learn. You have to learn what player likes to be talked to a lot, what player likes to have a little more space. So it's not just about the tennis, it's a little bit about the personality and the mindset as well.
Sure, I can imagine that. Now, just out of curiosity, our focus today, given that we're kicking off for Mother's Day coming up, I don't believe any of the Fed Cup players are mothers, but are they, or have there been mothers on the team in the past? There aren't any mothers on this team. I had in the beginning of my Fed Cup career, Liesl Huber, and she became a mother a few years ago. So I want to say that one of her last Fed Cup, she did have her first child. She just had her second child now. So, it's rare to have, a mom come back and play. It hasn't happened very often. Yvonne Goolagong did it way back when and won a Grand Slam. Lindsay Davenport, did it after she had her son. I want to say Kim Clijsters won the U.S. Open after having her daughter. But those are pretty unique examples. It's very rare. It's very rare, but yet we're hearing a lot more athletes doing that. You mentioned Goolagong. I know she was before your time, but were there mothers playing on the tour when you were playing?
So the only moms I remember when I was playing, at least during my career, I think Kathy Rinaldi played for a little while. I think Carling Bassett-Seguso played for a little while. And I believe Liz Smiley of Australia played for a little while. Those are the 3 that sort of stand out right now in my mind, that were competitive after having, had their children.
Sure. Now, for you, I know you retired now. You have 2 children, right? Isabella and Nicholas? Yeah.
That's right. Isabella's 14 and Nicholas is 11.
Oh, so you got a busy world.
Very true.
Now, just out of curiosity, are they athletes as well?
Yeah, they both do a lot of sports. They both play tennis, which I'm really happy about.
Good.
But they also play some team sports. My daughter is very into lacrosse at the moment. She plays for her school team. And then my son plays some soccer.
and he's really liking basketball at the moment. So they keep me busy, and they're very busy. So it's a lot of fun. I believe in sports in general, just to keep kids active and healthy, and really to keep them out of trouble, keep them away from, just being on the computer or watching TV, and keeping them really focused on a particular task at hand.
Keeping them fit and healthy. Now, when you were playing, and you did see other examples of women on the tour who had children, but again, you sort of prefaced that it's very difficult to come back and be a successful athlete after you have children. Was that something you thought about as you were playing, that you were going to retire and then have children, or was that just not part of your thought process while you were playing?
Yeah, no, it never crossed my mind that I'd have children and then come back and play. I knew once I retired that I was done, and that the next chapter of my life was about to begin. So, for me, it worked out really well. And like I said, I just think your life changes so much for the better, but just
sure.
Like you said before, for the busier as well. And, it's not easy to stay as disciplined, with your own fitness and your own practice schedule, and also, do what you have to do at home with your first child. But I totally respect and awe of the women that have been able to go back, not just in tennis, but in other sports, as in, track and field and volleyball, sure. Swimmers. It's pretty impressive that you can have that motivation and that sort of intensity and focus to be able to get back to that level.
One of the things I wondered, as something that you may face in the future, although not as common, but we've certainly seen it, the WNBA, we've seen it with the Women's World Cup team, and I know you were in 2012, you're the Olympic team captain. Do you think if you have Fed Cup players who are mothers, and I know you said one in the past, is there anything that you have to do to sort of adapt to having a mother on the team?
Well, I think if you're a mother and you're competing at a high level, you really know how to manage your time. You really know what you need, and you've done it all. So I think it's almost a little bit easier because they know what's best for them. I think the younger ones are the ones you try to groom a little bit more and help kind of guide. Try to share experiences and stories with them that can help them along the way. But I think, if you've been around and you've started your family, I think you really know the time that you have, how important it is and how to, manage everything a little bit better.
And keep the focus on, because you've only got a short amount of time to get
Exactly. Exactly. I mean, I do feel like from looking at the athletes that have been able to do it, I do feel that it takes maybe a little bit pressure off your sport, because obviously your family comes first. And I remember when I had my daughter, I remember I used to get really nervous doing the commentating, and I went to the first event. It was in Amelia Island after I found out I was pregnant, and I wasn't nervous at all the first time I had to go do a match. And I was thinking, that's weird. But I think all your perspective shifts, and you obviously start realizing what's really important, and the thing that's the most important is the health of your child. Right. So once that kind of shifts, I think you're a little bit more relaxed in other day-to-day activities, whatever other work things you have or things that you're doing. So I think it definitely can help the athlete as well, because the pressure might be a little bit less for them.
Certainly that sees something that I've heard from other mothers, that it's such a shift in focus, because you have very little time, but at the same time, you also, everything is a little bit sweeter, because you realize at the end of the day, I have my family, and that's all that really matters.
Exactly.
Now, and that's got to be something that's sort of a very strange mindset after coming from, especially, you were an elite athlete among elite athletes, and sort of the pressure of always sort of pushing to that next level and chasing that dream. And I'm sure it was something when you realized, hey, there's a lot else going on, that had to be pretty mind-blowing. So thank you for sharing with us about Amelia Island, which is beautiful, by the way. But
it is nice there.
So when it comes to how do you manage, I know you have to do some travel for your commentating with ESPN and CBS.
how do you manage that with being a mom?
Well, it's a good question. I've been really lucky that I've been able to take my children almost everywhere I go for work. It's getting a little more challenging as they get older. And, something I tell moms of little ones is, when they're little, it's really kind of the time that you can travel and you can, go away for work or go away with your husband, because when they're little, they actually don't need you as much as you think. When you're a first-time mom, you think you can't leave their side. I don't think I left my daughter, I don't know for how, many months. I wouldn't, leave her at all. My mom kept saying, you need to go. I'm like, no, it's okay, But, now I realize that as they get older, they actually need you more. And then, they really need you emotionally and psychologically as, the friends change and the peer pressures and school gets harder. So it definitely gets a little more challenging to leave them. So that's something I always, tell new moms. It's like, okay, when they're little, I know you think, you have to be there 24/7, but if you have work or whatever, now's the time to do it, because it's going to get harder.
Well, and that's, I don't think, something we're prepared for, right? The little ones seem so dependent, and yet in many ways they motor along with you. You can pack them up and put them in the car and go.
They do, and as long as they're being fed and changed and swaddled, they're happy. So
for the teenagers,
I realize that now.
Yeah,
exactly. But like I said before, I'm fortunate. My children, come with us almost everywhere. And then when they don't, I try really hard to have either, one of my family members here with them, whether it's my mom or my sister, my mother-in-law helps out a lot too. So, at least they have some family member there that if I'm not there, that's, the next best thing.
What's it like mothering as a future athlete as a former athlete? Is it difficult? Is it hard to sort of turn off that, quote, sort of infamous tennis parent or stage parent, or are you able to just kind of step back and say, hey, this is your game, you do what you got to do, and let them go? Yeah,
it's a little bit of both. I come from, a family that was very driven, and I was very driven and motivated, so you want that for your children no matter what they do. So you pretty much let them decide what they want to do, but whatever they decide, you want them to give it their all. So, my parents always instilled that in me. Whatever you do, your effort has to be 110%. So as long as they're giving 110%, then it doesn't matter what sport it is or what activity they're doing. It's great. Obviously, when it's tennis, it's a little harder for me to separate, because that's my background, and I'm learning now that they don't really want to hear from mom, telling them what to do on the tennis court, so I have to give them a little bit more space. But in general, it's more about the effort and the attitude and the disposition that they're putting out there, because I really think that you learn so many life skills from sports, and the way you carry yourself and all that really shows your character. So you want them to learn lessons. You want them to, to mature and learn how to be a good teammate and work with others. But, I always tell them, and I tell my FED Cup players this as well, there's very few things, in sports you can control all the time. And a couple of things you can control are how fit you are, how ready you are physically. That's on you, but also your attitude. Your attitude's in your control. And sometimes you're not going to feel, that positive, or things aren't going as well, but you sort of still have to put that front up and have a good attitude. So that's what I try to pass along to both my children.
Now, do either one of them hope to be a professional athlete in any one of their chosen sports?
I think if you'd ask my son, he probably would say yes. He would probably say, oh, yeah, for sure, tennis or basketball, But, my daughter, I think, is more realistic. I think, hopefully they'll play in high school 1 or 2 sports, and then if we're really lucky, they'll be able to play a sport in college. That's what I'm hoping for.
Great.
But, you got to dream big, and my 11-year-old loves watching tennis, and he's got a great role model in Roger Federer, who my husband represents, so he looks up to him so much. So, so having him around is pretty inspiring.
Well, that's great. One of the things I wondered about, sort of thinking about your daughter's experience and your own. Now, I know as tennis and at that elite level, it starts pretty young and you're focused. What role did your mom play in helping you become a tennis player? Was it more your dad or coaches?
Yeah, my dad was the one who pushed a little bit more. He's the one who would take me to practice, to hit against the wall, to hit against the ball machine. My mom really didn't know much about tennis, I have to say. She was more of my, support system, and, she helped me a lot with school and, making sure that I got good grades, and she was on top of, my education. But it was more my dad that pushed me along with tennis, I have to say. And it's funny, I only played tennis. I didn't play any other sports.
Sure.
And I never got bored and I never got burnt out. But I think that's rare as well. So that's why I'm really happy that my children play other sports, because, gosh, when you start so young, doing something, you figure, gosh, by the time you're 11 or 12, you've been doing something 5 or 6 years already, let's do something else. So because I love tennis so much, I'm happy they play other sports, because I think that'll keep them in tennis, hopefully, for a really long time, because it's such a good sport at any age, any level, that you just want them to be, in it and liking it for a long time.
I agree. I've always thought, I was a collegiate basketball player, and, basketball, your fitness leaves, you get a little bit older. Tennis, you can play. It's a lifetime game, right?
Yes,
absolutely. As great as you were. Yep. And I'm always I would say to my parents, they said, we try to get you to play tennis, but it was all about the dribbling ball.
Right.
But no,
that wasn't their fault. That wasn't their fault.
But it's truly a lifetime game, and it's really great. You can see people, especially in Florida, and some of our listeners, they're out there in their 70s playing in tournaments for,
Yeah, it's fantastic. I know, it's incredible.
It's a really neat thing. Just to tie back a little bit with being a mom, when you look at sort of Isabella's experiences as an athlete, are they, and I know yours was a pretty individualized experience, but do you see her, or maybe even the athletes that you're coaching, whether it be in the Olympics or the Fed Cup, do they have different opportunities than you did as somebody in the growing up in the late 80s and early 90s as a female athlete?
For my daughter, I guess because she plays team sports, it's a little different. She has a lot more friendships from sports, I think, than I did. She also has opportunities, like she was really proud that she got voted captain of her lacrosse middle school team this season.
Congratulations.
It was a big deal, and she's a little bit hurt at the moment, but she goes to every practice and she wants to be there for her team. So you grow, I think it helps you grow up. It helps you develop, the leadership skills, and she was a really shy little girl when she was growing up, and I feel like she's really blossomed and developed into a more confident and a leader. So I feel like sports has done that, and being on a team particularly has helped with that. So, coming from a different angle for me, that I played tennis all the time, and it was really against one or two people, one or two friends that I had that I played with all the time.
They were your match.
Right. So it's nice to see that. My Fed Cup and Olympic players, I've had Serena and Venus, so I've seen the very, very best, and that's been, quite an honor to see how driven and how hard they work and what it takes to be at that elite level. But yeah, the opportunities for women are better and better every day, and to see how far we've come and how far the game has progressed, and it's so much more physical, and I think that's why we're seeing players play better later, technically in tennis terms, we used to, girls used to peak early on in their teenage years, and now you're seeing, 30-year-olds play at their best. So, it definitely has changed, but I think it's given a lot of players just a lot of hope that if you haven't made it by 16, 17, it's okay. You still have time.
And that's something that most people, I don't know, they could sort of conceptualize, that an athlete is hitting their peak in their early 20s and it's over, where, we have sort of this image that an athlete's career is much longer, but, particularly professional tennis.
Yeah, for tennis it's short. Yeah, for tennis it's a bit shorter. But I'm happy to say that it's kind of extended now, because when I played, gosh, all the players were winning Grand Slams when they were 16, 17, 18 years old.
We haven't seen that for a while, and I think part of the reason Serena, at 34,
sure.
has played so well and has dominated. But, Li Na was in her 30s as well. Kerber just won the Australian Open at 28. Panetta won the U.S. Open last year at 30. So, we're definitely seeing, maturity come to play and experience, but they're also stronger, and it takes a lot, I think, for a young player now to break through because it's more physical.
Right, and that's, I think, some of the things that we're seeing with the advancements that Title IX has provided and things of that. Well, Mary Jo, I can't thank you enough for taking the time to meet with us.
Oh, my pleasure, Jennifer. Thank you so much for having me.
Speak with us. And tell us, when should we look to tune in for the Fed Cup?
So Fed Cup, we won't be back around until next February. We start up again in the World Group. But the Olympics, watch the Olympics starting August. I want to say August 5th or 6th. We will be down in Rio, so that'll be exciting. Another opportunity to hopefully win some medals for the USA.
Great. Well, we thank you for everything, and hopefully take home some gold medals for America.
Sounds good.
Thank you very much.
All righty. Take care.
Okay.
Bye-bye.